Calling the meeting to order. Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Harmony, can you verify quorum?
Yes, sir. Director Harris?
Here.
Director Hagen? Here. Director Nathan?
Here.
Director Welty?
Here.
President Queen?
Here.
5 present, quorum met.
All right. First up, we have approval of minutes. Does anybody want to make any changes to the minutes for October 3rd, November 21st, or December 5th, all of 2017? Make a motion we approve the minutes as written.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Public official comments. We have Nancy Horton. Nancy, are you here? Yeah, I talked to her.
Nancy Horton, Director, District 1, EVMWD. As we know, our own water supply is down to 1375.96 as of today. It's going down. All the beautiful weather that we have is contributed to evaporation. So having nothing to say since there's no rain except in the forecast for next Tuesday, but we don't know whether it's for us. I wanted to assure everybody that above us, from Northern California on, there is a pretty good story about our water supply. As you know, approximately 80% of our water supply comes from imported water, which is really through our wholesaler, Metropolitan, and it comes from Northern California. So right now, the Colorado River is at 57% of capacity. Lake Mead and Lake Powell, first of all, Lake Mead is at 39% and Lake Powell at 59%. But that's a little misleading because they use Lake Powell to fill up Lake Mead, so they're moving the water between the two bodies. There's a lot of water above us. Oroville is at 36%, and that's without rain. The San Luis Reservoir is at 78%. Castaic is at 81%. And Diamond Valley Lake, which is not a water source for us, but for San Diego, is at 90%. So above us in the watershed with no water so far, we have a really good supply, and especially Metropolitan, they have 3 million acre feet of storage, which is really good. So if we don't get any rain, we aren't going to have to turn the faucets off. We're just going to have to buy water that is more expensive from Metropolitan, which charges a lot of money for water. So let's just hope next Tuesday brings us rain. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I just said thank you. We have a new mayor. Is Vicki Warren here tonight? Yes, there she is.
Now can you hear me? There you go. Vicki Warren, City Council member just appointed to the 2018 mayor seat. I just want to speak briefly about a subject that we've all been worried about, and that's the cannabis legislation that recently passed. In Canyon Lake, it is still prohibited to have commercial sale here. This is a recreational use law that has just passed. People cannot consume in any way, ingest or smoke in public, even in smoking areas. Passengers and drivers cannot consume, ingest, or smoke in any way inside a vehicle. So look at that as your alcohol laws. Keep it in the trunk. We do have nuisance laws here. We can't prohibit people from growing 6 plants for their own recreational use. That's 6 per house, not 6 per person. got to clarify that. But if there is a problem with anybody, if you feel that you are being bothered by anybody, you need to let the city know. We do have rules. I'm sure the POA has some too that can fall into play. We had a great 2017. We're looking forward to working with the POA more in 2018. We have been building that bridge. Let's keep that up. We were working recently on some of the road issues left behind by SCE. That's just a minor irritant that people come to me because they assume the city takes care of the roads. So I get the complaints. And in 2018, we're also going to start working on some of our traffic issues, not necessarily inside the gates, but we have commuters. We have a community where people are commuting more now than ever before, and we want to try to clear some of those 3-hour drives up if we can. So we'll work with other cities. And that's all I have. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Vicki.
All right, thank you.
And congratulations, by the way. All right. Eric, did you want to wait till the item for the presentation, or do you want to do it under presentations here?
Let's wait for the item.
All right. All right, for consent agenda, we want to pull items G and L to be discussed separately. So excluding items G and L, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, all other items.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor to approve A through O, less G and L approved.
All right, item G is rule revision regarding qualifications to be elected to the POA Board of Directors, and we had an audience member that asked if we could clarify what this means a little bit. I'm not the legal expert, but Teresa or Sean, can you define for us crimes of moral turpitude?
Yes, generally speaking, crimes of moral turpitude involve dishonesty, fraud, or antisocial behavior that harms others. There's case law that defines specific examples of moral turpitude, but that generally speaking, such as a forgery, would be a crime of moral turpitude.
All right, so item G, make a motion that we approve item G as written.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Brings us to item L on page 56. The reason I asked for this one to be pulled is I have a concern. This has to do with, I'm on the right page, hold on. Yeah, age requirements for boat operation, page 56. That's not what's on my page 56, hold on. Here it is. So, the proposed new rule says a person 16 years of age may operate a boat powered by a motor of more than 15 horsepower. People from 12 to 15 years of age may operate a boat powered by a motor of more than 15 horsepower if they are supervised by on board by a person at least 18 years of age. Boat operators are required to obtain and possess a California Boater's Card as outlined by the new California Division of Boating and Waterways Law. My concern with this is, I'm a skier, Tom, you're a skier. I'm a little bit afraid of being down in the water and having a 12-year-old driving a boat towards me. I think the 16-year-old rule would cover it for me. It's what you have to be to drive a car. I think it should be the same for the boats. I'd kind of want to pull that sentence where it says you could be 12 to 15 and just have it say you need to be 16 to be able to drive a boat on our lake. I think you don't have the mental capacity for what to do if you're coming up on a down skier and there's boats on both sides of you if you're 12 years old, and it could cause an accident on the lake that could seriously hurt somebody. I really don't feel comfortable with having 12-year-olds okay to drive boats on our lake.
This, word for word, is out of current California boating rules for all state of California. So that's all the intent of this rule change was meant to be, is to make it consistent with what the state of California currently says. So you can see there's some inconsistencies in the horsepowers. We already have allowed for people 12 to 15 to go, and it's basically, going to be owner and operator of the boat. The actual owner is going to be the one that's going to be in charge and responsible to use their common sense and not letting somebody operate a boat unless it's safe and unless they're in a situation. It'd be like probably having a child with a learner's permit, so to speak. You know, that we don't have a boater's license, although now we have this boater's card that starts this year, as of yesterday, 20 years old and under have to have a boater's card. Next year it goes to 25, then 35, ultimately by 2025, everybody has to have one. So again, I'm just trying to get this consistent with what California law already says for everywhere else in the state of California, on all open lakes and rivers.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'm just saying, are you comfortable with a 12-year-old driving a boat when you're down in the water and it's a busy day and it's a weekend and dad's drinking beers in the boat and talking to other people in the boat and the 12-year-old's forced to a decision where he's like, oh crap, what do I do? And dad's not really paying attention. I just don't think it's a smart thing to do.
I think it's a smart thing to do to get people to stage their way into it, because they can't just go from 15 years old, they've never driven a boat, to 16 years old, and all of a sudden it's okay that next day for them to be off by themselves. This is the way that they gradually learn how to do it with the correct supervision in the boat, training, so to speak. So, I mean, I think it all is really upon the adult. It's the person that's in the boat that's responsible for this situation is the one who's going to be the risk. And if you're worried about the person, I wouldn't be worried about the 12 or 15-year-old, I would be worried about the adult. And in that case, they already have the right to do all this stuff.
Yeah, but if they were driving, hopefully they would be paying more attention. I don't know, I'm just not comfortable with it. Is there any other comments?
I'm not comfortable either. Common sense is lacking nowadays.
You can pull up all the situations you want with all the adults that use bad judgment, and that's unfortunately the exception, I think, not the rule. I mean, this is supposed to be something that provides for the person that wants to learn how to do something along the way of growing up. And like I said, the state of California has already adopted this as their policy for everywhere in the state of California. So the question would be, why do we want to be more restrictive here? And is it really a valid concern because we feel like it's the wrong rule or the wrong law, or is it just that we're worried about some individuals here who could be anywhere? They could, do this down in Lake Elsinore too if they really wanted to. So we're just trying to be consistent in the state of California.
I'd rather they go to Elsinore.
Yeah, I mean, Elsinore and other lakes are a lot bigger than ours. On Crowd Weekend on our lake, it's a lot more boats in a lot smaller area, a lot more boats close together. I think my answer to your question would be for safety. I don't feel a 12-year-old is mentally, high enough in their thinking to be able to make judgment calls when they encounter situations that's going to be difficult, and the adult in the boat might not be paying attention because they're not driving the boat.
Just to comment, we did strike out the line where it says, except for the East Bay and other little coves. Would it be acceptable to maybe put that back in? In other words, your 12-year-old,
East Bay, yeah.
I like to put my 10-year-old in my lap or 12-year-old in my lap and have him while I'm on the wheel with the hands, but he's sitting there learning to be, so when he turns 16, suddenly he's been there. So maybe we could at least open up the East Bay to.
I agree, that's fine. If it's in the 5-mile-an-hour zones and 12 to 15, that's probably acceptable because we don't have the inherent danger of going 35 miles an hour on a crowded lake with people are skiing and down in the water.
Exactly, very different on the main lake on a busy day, and Dad's not. It's one thing when your kid's in your lap and you have your hands on the wheel. It's another thing to be in the back of the boat just finishing your 12-pack, and I understand that.
All right, then I'm going to make the motion that we return this to the Rules and Regs Committee and ask them to modify it so that it says 12 to 15 years of age can operate the boat in the 5-mile-an-hour zones only.
I second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carried.
All right. All right, so that brings us down to item 6.1, approval committee, appointment for dredge committee. Dale, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve Ben Wick, effective immediately, to be appointed to the Dredge Committee.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Item 6.2, approval committee, appointment for rules and regs. Tom, do you want to take that?
About Craig?
6.2, yes, Craig Brown.
Good evening. We have a vacant alternate position on the Rules and Regulations Committee. Last month, the committee met and they recommended that Craig Brown be appointed to the alternate position. However, we did receive applications from Rita Robles as well as Bill Vetter.
All right, so I make a motion, we approve Craig Brown as the, is it alternate or permanent member?
Alternate.
As the alternate for the Rules and Regs Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Item 6.3, renovation of Happy Camp Campground. I believe we're going to have a short presentation on this. Eric, are you ready to do that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to read the action item so we have at least the first part of it, so we know where we're headed with this. And then we'll switch this cable here and I'll show some pictures that provide a little background to what I'm about to read. Happy Camp is one of Canyon Lake's most popular and unique amenities. It offers water views and beachfront and boat camping to association members and their guests. Its docks make a great spot for water sports and fishing. It's also probably the best front row seat for the 4th of July fireworks and constantly sold out. We have a lottery that weekend. On November 18th, we released a request for proposal for the Happy Camp construction project, and we received 10 bids from general contractors. Base bids range from $702,500 to $1,079,000, with a variety of 6 additive and deductive alternates submitted. Happy Camp is the POA's least subsidized amenity and generates a substantial amount of income. That income is estimated at $256,000 for fiscal year 18 and 19, and with a very minor subsidy by the members of $13,000 divided by 4,800. So it's hardly subsidized at all. All the infrastructure there is aged, outdated, and needing replacement. In particular, the electrical system is undersized and requires upgrading for modern RVs and to increase the number of full hookup campsites. The asphalt roads are also badly deteriorated, and this is one of the paved areas in Canyon Lake that was intended for replacement this year using the Road Reserve Fund. You've heard us talk about our pavement management project and repaving 20-some parking lots throughout the POA, which is the Lodge parking lot, Country Club parking lot, all the park parking lots. The campground was part of that project, and so some of the funds for this Happy Camp project will be coming out of the Road Reserve funds because of that, because a large portion of it is the asphalt pavement rehabilitation. In general, the scope of work is as follows. Repair and replace portions of the asphalt roads, construct new concrete pathways, modify the campground layout to accommodate larger RVs with slide outs. We're also changing the layout from 90-degree campsites that are 90 degrees to the lake to diagonal campsites that are much easier for larger RVs to pull in and out of. We will be replacing the sewer and water systems, the electrical system, the Edison transformer, all of which allows us to provide adequate electrical power for modern RVs in every campsite. We'll be increasing the number of campsites with electrical hookups from 34 in number to 55, which will generate additional income because we can charge more for those campsites. The community at large is very supportive of this project, and it is long overdue. There's been versions of this project kicked around since 1999, and it's been started, installed, and it's started now, and it has a good head of momentum, and we have good bids, and we think it's time to get this done now. Okay, I'm going to go to the pictures, and then we can get to the recommendation after that. See if we can pull this off. Searching again. Bear with us a second here. Okay, it worked. So this is kind of a sketch of it's an aerial view of what we have now, and if you can see the cursor at the kind of top of the screen, you can see the campsites are at 90 degrees to the lake. The red lines you see here are a new layout that would be diagonal, obviously much easier for modern RVs to pull in and out of, and a little wider campsites because many RVs have slide outs on one side or both sides, and you get RVs that have slide outs on both sides and they basically touch when they're camping. And another aspect is the campsites by the lake are really fairly shallow for large RVs, and so if you see, I'm running the cursor left and right here on the existing road. The new road will be moving further inland to make those lakeside campsites deeper, and then the same thing with the secondary road here. And basically the road by the lake and the intermediate road in the middle, those roads will be ground up for base material, and those will be entirely new roads. The rest of the asphalt in the whole project will be crack sealed and overlaid, and so when we're done we'll have an entirely new pavement project. And like I said, that was part of the master plan pavement project for all the parks. Let's see if I can get to the next one. These are just some aerial views. There's a view of Happy Camp on a busy weekend. You can see when all those lakefront campsites are full and 90-degree parking, it's virtually impossible for a large RV to even pull out and leave or come in unless you get there early or leave very late. You kind of see the same kind of thing here. This happened to be in this album. I showed the board this earlier. This is a erosion control project we have going on the North Causeway right now. It's another thing Operations is doing. And I'm just going to click through these. Most of these pictures are pretty indicative of how poor the asphalt is there. And it's many, many years beyond its useful life. And you can see there's some drainage issues. There's low spots here. There's really no swales or V-ditches or any kind of drainage. The water basically just sheets across, and you can see the edge of the asphalt's, the dirt's very badly eroded. This is a typical electrical and water hookup at an average campsite. They're direct bury pedestals. Most of them are rusted and leaning. There's no protective concrete filled pipe bollards to prevent an RV from hitting them or backing over them. And so most of them have had that happen to them many, many times over 50 years. Right here is a sewer dump site with a concrete pad. At one time, this concrete pad was level with the campsite, and when we're all done, all the campsites will be that way again. This is also pretty typical of a rusted galvanized pipe riser, and basically the entire water system will be redone. It's 50 years old and it's time. Another pretty good indicator of, there's a red stake here, don't hit the water, don't hit the cable, don't hit the sewer, don't hit this. And trust me, they've been hit many, many times. And so the new installation, there'll be protective pipe bollards preventing that from happening. This will all be consolidated. The electrical system will be new. The sewer system will be new. There's cable TV and telephone cables shown here. The cable system hasn't been used for many years. People still connect to it basically as a long antenna, but there's no cable service coming out of it, and the cable providers tell us that they're not currently able with their infrastructure to give us cable service. So we're probably I'm going to recommend to the board that we take a $50,000 deduct to eliminate the TV and the telephone service from the campground, and that we invest a small portion of that money into a better Wi-Fi system. Nobody uses landlines anymore, and a decent Wi-Fi system we think will more than suffice. And the fact of the matter is we can't actually even provide cable there, so we're not going to put the pipe in the ground or do the trenching. This is a pretty good indicator of the runoff issues we have and the drainage issues. There's some cable TV that hasn't been connected to probably in 10 years. Another sewer clean out. These clean outs are $300 a lid. They're cast iron, and we're going to be reusing a good portion of these. All the ones that are reusable, to save money, we're going to reuse those in the new installation because they don't really go bad. The light poles will also be replaced with new metal poles and LED lighting. This very typical situation with drainage and asphalt cracking, same. So these roads are badly deteriorating. It's just time. You can see there's been a big patch here.
Can you touch on the problems with the current electrical system as well? Or?
Yeah. So the Edison transformer is currently undersized to provide electricity to the campsites that have electrical hookups. And even if only a small portion of them have electrical hookups, but right now in the middle of the summer, if a modern RV comes and turns their air conditioning on, if everyone with electrical hookup plugs in there, the campground basically starts to shut down, and that we don't have enough service there, and the electrical, the conductors and the wire and the transformers are all undersized in order to provide the service we need to for a full campground. So we're going to replace the transformer. That's in the works with Edison. Just showing some pictures of the restroom and laundry building. This will be remodeled and brought up to ADA standards in a later phase. But so we're going to increase the electrical capacity of the whole campground. We're going to add electrical hookups so that when we're all done, every campsite should be able to provide full RV hookups, electrical, sewer, water, and all of them running continuously, which is kind of the idea. We're not able to do that now. This is the current little office building. In the next phase, when we remodel the restroom, we'll be relocating this closer to the gas dock. And as I said before, these two roads will be moved further inland just to provide a little larger campsites. And that's basically all I have. So I'll give you this back.
All right, thank you, Eric. So the campground remodel, I don't know if you've looked at your board packets, it's a lot of money. It's about $774,000 in total. As Eric said, the campground hasn't had much attention in 50 years, and it was designed for what we had 50 years ago. When everyone had a camper on the back of their pickup truck or a small trailer that was 15 feet long. It wasn't designed to handle the loads and the rigs that are pulling into our campgrounds today. As Eric said, a lot of the big campers can't even pull into the camping spots because they have to pull in straight like this, and then once we angle the spots, they'll be able to pull in and out easier. I talked with Eric and the board about this a couple weeks ago. I had him release the amount that we got submitted to us and the different bids, the range of bids for the price. We put it on the POA website. It was put on a couple of Facebook pages. I did that on purpose to make sure that the community was aware of the amount of money we're talking about spending here on the campground, because it is a lot of money. I know in the past boards have basically said, here's the amount of money, and then immediately voted for it. You didn't have any time to kind of digest what it was. So we did that for you so that you could be more aware of the amount of money we need to spend to bring the campground up to current standards and regulations. Unfortunately, a lot of this work is the underground work. It's the bulk of the cost of the project. So when this is completed, it's not going to be something that you visibly see a huge difference in other than the roads, but the huge difference is for the people that are actually using it, because you're going to have all the hookups, all the electric power that we need to use so that when everyone's there on busy weekends during the summer, they can actually work and have everyone's air conditioners running and not shut the campground down. I think it needs to be done. It's just a little bit difficult to swallow because it is a lot of money. Anyway, I'm going to make a motion that we approve in two parts, awarding the construction contract.
Hello?
Apparently we have electrical problems here too. I'm going to make a motion that we approve awarding a construction contract in the amount of $694,000 to DMC Enterprises for the Happy Camp renovation project, and secondarily approve $80,300 in additional funding as follows for surveying, Edison transformer upgrades, construction, fencing, materials testing, engineering, consultants, and a 4% contingency. Now these two items would be a total of $774,300, and of that $774,000, $649,300 would come from the repair and replacement reserve, and $125,000 would come from the road reserve. That's my motion.
I second.
Discussion.
think it's about time.
I believe we have one member comment as well.
Yeah, we'll go to member comments after we have board comments. No other comments? Dale? Mike?
No, I think it's about time.
All right, we have one member that wants to talk on this. Trevor Sudweeks, track 3718, lot 334. Trevor, you here?
Okay, Paul, I want to point out that in the previous pictures I showed, somehow I didn't show this one, but there's a picture from the Friday Flyer from 1970, and as you can tell, it's identical today to how it was in 1970, and this project's very, very long overdue. You can see the RVs are quite a bit shorter than we have today, and it's time to get with the times.
Go ahead, Trevor. Press the button, please.
222272 Treasure Island Drive. I look at the campground off my balcony every day. I really wanted to do the project. I didn't know you'd already made up your mind on which contractor you were going to use. If there is, if there is any chance of consideration, I'd really like to do the project, and there's some ways that we could save money value engineering the project. I guess I'm a little late, but I just wanted, I would really like to do the project. I've lived in Canyon Lake for 15 years, and my reputation's impeccable. I've done a number of ground-up commercial projects, medical projects, very high-end stuff. So if you want to think about the contractor and approve the funds, I would really love a shot at this.
Well, Eric, did he submit bids? Was he one of the 10 bidders?
That's correct.
Okay. So the staff has reviewed the bids and they're making the recommendation. It's not us. We're going with staff's recommendation for the contractor that they chose based on the bidding and qualifications.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor.
Was this the lowest bid, Eric?
Yeah, it turns out that the recommendation I'm making is, in fact, the lowest bid. It's not always about the lowest bid. It's about the lowest responsible bidder and lowest qualified bid. And I do appreciate the fact that you bid this very much, and the other 9 bidders. And the tabulation we made, which I've shared with the board, the combination of base bid and alternates that we're using, unfortunately, your bid was about $100,000 more. So it's hard to present a recommendation with that in mind.
I understand, but maybe, who knows, when you go to put the contract together, keep me in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. All right. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
I'm in
opposed?
I'm in favor, motion carried.
All right. Item 6.4 is going to make Jack Wamsley happy. Emergency golf cart purchase, CIP funding. Jack's actually kind of the driver behind this. If you don't know the story, there was a golfer that I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, had a heart attack on the golf course, and unfortunately he passed away. And part of the problem was that there was difficulty in getting fire services out onto the portions of the golf course and to be able to assist this gentleman. So part of what Jack and the board has worked on is assigning numbering schemes to the golf course so that they've worked with the fire department so that they can outline where they are on the golf course if there's a medical emergency, and the fire department has that mapping and everything now so they know the best and fastest way to get out to that person if there's a person with medical distress that's out on the golf course. And we also Jack worked on getting an emergency golf cart that could be used to transport an individual that's been suffered a medical problem on the golf course. It's basically a golf cart with a long bed that can be used by the paramedics when they go out to the golf course. If the quickest way to get there isn't by accessing from a street location, they're actually coming to the country club, then this golf cart could be used by the paramedics to go out and get this person and bring them back to where they can put them in the ambulance and get them to the hospital. Jack was very successful in accumulating a lot of donations from both the community and the golf course people as well. I believe the total cost of the project, Eric, can you remind me, was it going to be around $15,000, but he's achieved about $7,500 in donations? So the amount left is what we're working with tonight. I'm going to make a motion that we approve item 6.4 to fund the remaining amount of that emergency golf cart in the amount of $3,544.25 plus a 50% contingency to be purchased from Prestige Golf Carts.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I would just like to say thanks to all the people in the community who stepped up and donated some funds to this. I know that some of I think Jack can go into, I think we got a donation from the ambulance company, and we got a donation from the CR&R that were very helpful. I was in the meetings when we discussed this, and I'll tell you, having the golf cart is half the battle, only half the battle. The other half of the battle is to know what to do when a person is in an emergency. And one of the things the committee talked about was that we are going to hand out cards that'll be on the golf courts or be available that says, when an emergency happens, do this first, do this second, do this third. So you can have all the golf carts in the world, but if you don't know what to do with them and the people on the course don't know what to do, then it's really pretty useless. The number one rule is dial 911. If there's an emergency, dial 911, stay on the line. Most everybody has a cell phone in their group. Second call, which should be made by someone else, is to the golf course pro. So please, you're going to be getting cards when you go out on your golf course, and please follow the directions and realize that you need to follow the directions. And as we went through the discussions of this emergency cart, we started talking about the emergency capability of the other parks in the community and the other amenities. And we talked basically that maybe we need a set of instructions that it's kind of out in the general community, that if you're in a park and there's an emergency, you dial 911. So hopefully Jack will come on to the Recreation Committee and have a little talk about emergency procedures, and I believe the emergency preparedness group, they can come and help, and we can get maybe some directions for the whole all the amenities in the parks in the community also.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
5 in favor, motion carried.
All right, item 6.5 is approval for the 2018, or Jack, did we have Jack?
I think we have one member comment.
6.4, was that what we just did? Yeah. Jack, did you want to come up and speak before we move on?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the board for supporting our efforts. We had, as you saw on the list, a lot of people in our community supporting the project. We had the men's club and the women's club and clams, and we had just a lot of personal support also. Along with that, we've met the president of the golf and the president of women's club, the Niners. We've had, 3 meetings, Dave? And along with that, we had the fire department, the captain from 60, which is Captain Carter, captain from 94s, which is Robert. And we have discussed different approaches. There's probably 100, what if? That's not going to change. So we tried to set it up, and I have talked with the chief and the 2 fire captains. Actually, Station 5 is also involved. And what we've tried to do is start out with something simple. It's not that we can't add to it and change it, and we certainly might end up doing that. But at the present time, the cart would be maintained and handled by Pat, our pro. He is in favor of that. The drivers of the emergency vehicle would be handled by Pat's people, and they will be trained by Larry Green. Larry Green's agreed. He's also been on our committee, and he'll work with them, and I'll also work with them. I'm working with Prestige in designing the cart, so we're really set to go, and I really thank Eric for his efforts in helping us. And we also brought in the city manager so that everybody knew what we were doing and why. And we really had a lot of help from everyone and comments. Some of the things we changed. We started out one way. We made some changes because the fire department and some insurance problems. I know Tom was concerned about that. And so at the present time, what will happen is the driver will be one of Pat's people or Pat. They will pick up the cart, which will be downstairs. It will come to the front of in the parking lot. The fire department will respond there. Both the paramedic and the assistant there from the fire will get on our emergency cart and go directly to the problem. The advantage of that is the fact that when they get there, they can actually do something. They can give them an IV if requested. They can go through CPR. There's a lot of things that they can do that we can't do as an individual without that training. Just recently, not recently, but several months ago, I was kind of surprised that we can't even give them oxygen anymore. That has to be done by an EMT1 certified. So that will be taken care of. There'll be oxygen right on the cart, and they can do that. We think we have a good program. The chief fire department thinks we have a good program, and all the captains are all in favor of it. So we'll start out that way. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of what ifs, and I've been attacked by probably 50 people saying, well, what if this or what if that? And I said, well, these are things that we will have to work out. We're not saying this is the perfect program to start off with, but it's a hell of a lot better program than anybody in Southern California has. And I think we're going to have that protection. And if we can save one life, it's worth the money that we're putting out. I presented that to CR&R, and Jack, he says, Jack, how much do you need? I said, I need $5,000. We got $5,000. So the people are interested, and we got support from the people. So I've taken enough time.
Jack, what did the ambulance company donate? What ambulance company was it, and what did they give us?
AMR gave us a full gurney and so on. Now, the mistake that some people said, well, we can't run a gurney. So the gurney is going to be solid on the cart. The cart will drive to the gurney is only to help in case of the type of service that we're going to give. They also gave us a flat board that goes with it in case we're going CPR. If the I'll take a rough guess at 80%. If you have to give oxygen to somebody, it's easier for them to set up to take the oxygen. This gurney allows us to do that. We will have that type of program. And so that I think we're in good shape. And again, I thank Eric for his help, and I thank all the board members for supporting it. I think you're going to find that there's really going to be a lot of other golf courses coming down to take a look at what we've got. That's all I have to say. If the vote goes through, and I say the vote has gone through, if it goes through, now we can cash those checks.
Thank you, Jack.
You have any questions at all?
No, I think it's a good tool. It gives the fire department and the paramedics a way of getting out to the golf course quicker, because I know when we talked about it in the board meetings, they said a lot of these ambulances and fire trucks are so heavy that they will not drive on unpaved roads. They can't actually drive them out on the golf course, even if there's ways for them to get there. With roads wide enough for them to do it, they can't do it because they would get stuck, they get overturned. Golf courses are hilly and bumpy and things like that. So they're kind of stuck with, how do we get to that person? What's the fastest, best way to get out there? And this basically provides them that access. So I think it's a good tool. All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, we already did it?
Yeah, motion's
Okay.
carried.
All right. Item 6.5, 4th of July fireworks show. This is the annual item for just funding of the fireworks that we have every year on the 4th of July. This year, we're being asked to approve an amount of $40,000 plus the cost of preparation on Skipper's Island and fire department inspection for the 2018 July 4th fireworks show. I make a motion we approve $40,000 for the July 2018 fireworks show.
I second.
Any discussion?
We are having a little bit different extra amenity for the fireworks, and that it's going to be broadcast over the radio. That's what I understand. So everybody in the lake can hear the same music. You can be at home and you can turn on your radio, or you can be on your boat and turn on your radio, and you can even iPad it. So the music will come from all different parts of the lake, from different homes, from different boats, so everybody can enjoy the music for the show.
Yeah, for people on boats, if your boat's like my boat, you don't get very good reception on a boat as far as radio, but Kola has an app. It's going to be broadcast on Kola Radio, so there's an app you can download on your phone, and you can either plug it into your boat stereo or Bluetooth connect to your boat stereo and basically play the same music on all the boats that is being played at Holiday Harbor and over at the lodge, and you kind of be more part of the show and getting the same music that everyone else is getting, so that is a little bit of a bonus this year. Did we have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
So any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry, 5 in favor, motion carried.
All right, next we have member comments on non-agenda issues and non-personnel issues. We have a few people who want to comment. Just briefly, keep in mind the comment period is for comments. It's not for questions. Come up and feel free to give whatever comment you have on whatever topic. I'll be calling you, for everyone that's filled out a form, to come up and comment. If you haven't filled out a form, you want to comment, you can come up to Harmony. She'll give you a form you can fill out and come up and comment on any issue that you care to. Our first comment is from Ray, and I can't make out his Frayer, track 3868, lot 222. Yes, keep in mind 3 minutes for your comments.
Ray, could you hit your microphone button?
Good evening. Gentlemen, I'm going to make this brief. Your concept of raising the golf course dues from $1,800 a year to $2,400 is the worst business decision that I have ever come across. I'm a businessman, and I have been very successful in the past and currently now. I'm going to make this brief. You folks are not businessmen. If you continue down this path, it is either due to your ignorance or how business is done, or you have a hidden agenda. You are very ignorant as to your customer demographics at the golf course. The approximate number of the men's club is as follows: 280 members, most paying you currently $1,800 a year. That equates to a guaranteed gross revenue of $504,000 a year in your pocket. That is just from the men's club. What you have not taken into account is the demographics of your customers. Only 16 of your members in the men's club were born in the 70s and the 80s. The rest were born in the 50s and prior. This is simple business and business common sense. Since most of these members are much older in age, they are not able to play extensive golf. Most of them I have spoken to, and they max out at 2 to 3 times a week. This is not a put down on them, it is just pure fact. Their bodies are not capable of playing more than 2 to 3 times a week. I took the time to ask them, did you? The $1,800 equates roughly a cost to them of about $20 per round. And that is if they play 3 times a week, which most do not. By raising it to $2,400, that increases their cost above $24 to $30 a round. Now you have made their cost equivalent to for them to play cheaper elsewhere. Since most of the members are retired, they also travel. Have you taken that into account? By the way, you have not taken into account the free labor that the Tuesday work group provides for you on the course. Their average age is 76.5. The total amount of labor is roughly 1,030.75 hours a year. Who is going to pay for this? From listening and not overreacting, most of these older gentlemen are planning on canceling their yearly membership. Say goodbye to your revenue, folks. By the way, I called Menifee Lakes, and I can play either course as a senior for $34, including cart, at any time. They are not here tonight due to the fact that they are hoping that you pass this. That way they can lower their actual financial costs by finding another alternative. Whether it is playing at Canyon Lake or elsewhere, probably the latter. I personally believe that this is just a hidden agenda to end up closing the golf course. Instead of taking another profit center away from the POA, stop and start to act as businessmen. This is why we appointed you. You have a fiduciary and civil responsibility that you are being held to by the Davis-Sterling Act. I personally am very tired of seeing hidden agendas lower my property values. The first was the destruction of the old lodge. It used to be a large profit center for the POA. You allowed a person that owned an outside bar and restaurant to relieve you of that profit center. Am I the only one that sees the conflict of interest in this matter? In fact, it was such a large enough profit center that he had to increase the size of his facility to accommodate the business. Now the business is so plentiful outside the gates that it is able to support 2 facilities with a third coming online. If my property value decreases due to your actions, I will file a complaint with the state under the Davis-Sterling Act. Gentlemen, you are liable. The Davis-Sterling Act. You are also liable by California Civil Code 10170.5, Business and Professional Conduct. My recommendation is that you plan on how to get the profit centers back into the walls of the POA. I have 3 very simple solutions for you and would be happy to meet with you and present them to you. Good night. Thank you.
Ray, we will have workshops on the issue. Ray, we will be having some workshops on the budget for next year, so we hope you attend.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Tomorrow's executive session agenda has an item to schedule meetings with the golf course presidents, staff, and the board to see if we can work this issue out. I think we said when this happened that we don't view this as written in stone. We know it's something we need to work on. We have 5 more months before it goes into effect to work on it, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to be able to work something out that's going to make everybody happy. Next, we have Clive Taylor, track 0396. Lot 798.
Good evening. Just briefly, incidentally, with regard to the emergency golf cart, at the Clams meeting on the 17th of this month, there will be somebody giving instructions on how to give CPR. So most of the people that are members of Clams are also golfers, so you may want to let people know to attend that meeting. I moved to Canyon Lake 10 months ago, and a big reason for that was the accessibility of the golf course, both physically and financially. I understand the costs are increasing, but a 33% jump in fees is just not acceptable. frankly, it will have exactly the opposite result that the board desires, if in fact the board does desire to keep the golf course. I know that many will no longer pay annual dues. I've spoken to at least 40 members. I'm a member of the 3 golf men's clubs here, and at least 40 members will no longer be paying annual fees. The $39 for a single round right now is equivalent to what you can get anywhere. The other thing I'd like to know is, why is the cost of electricity and water at the club restaurant included in the cost of course maintenance? That's open to everybody. Last Wednesday at 7:30 in the morning, the restaurant was almost totally full. And it was totally full because of an 8 o'clock tea time, and except for 4 people there, everyone was a golfer. And I can probably forecast that at least 50% of the bar profits are from the golfers. Increases in costs are inevitable, but a jump this size in 1 year is excessive, especially when there's no charge at all made for either pickleball or tennis. There was an article this morning in the Press Enterprise, and it was sort of timing, and it was to do with an HOA or a city council's New Year's resolutions. The first thing it came up with was, I don't control my neighbors, I serve them. An attitude of service will help me to be less defensive and stressed when neighbors challenge or criticize board decisions. I've already heard one of the board members this evening say, common sense seems to be totally lacking. I feel this is what you're doing at this particular time. I was amazed when I came here just 10 months ago at how many golfers are over 80 years old. We actually have 4 that play once a week, and they're in their 90s. Most of them are on fixed incomes. Their only outlet is golf. Many are vets, and in my opinion, not only is this the worst business decision you could make, this excessive jump is shameful. And the fact that you would take away the enjoyment of vets that we have living in this community is a total disgrace. And frankly, thank goodness we live in a democratic society, because the upcoming elections will certainly show our displeasure. Thank you.
All right. Next we have Don Potenza, track 3716, lot 470.
Good evening. Don Potenza, 3760 and 470 and 3719 174. At last month's meeting, many of us presented fact-based and accurate cases in an effort to educate you why your 33% golf course fee increase was irrational and even dangerous to the community. Later in the meeting, Paul Queen stated that our facts and figures were wrong and that the golf course was a higher subsidized amenity than the lake. That is flat on true. It is your duty to apologize to the community for your false statement and correct your error. When the board voted to raise the golf fees, you did not address the lake subsidy, which is higher than the golf course. You also did not propose to lower our POA dues. Your decision to raise fees was obviously not done for fiscal reasons. You know, and we all know, what that reason is. It was purely emotional and done to support a small segment of the community who have been fed inaccurate information and lies, and was done strictly to be vindictive to the members of the community who enjoy the golf course. Your efforts will only divide the community, which will cost all of us more money in the long run and hurt our property values. I was personally attracted to the community because all the amenities were and still are such a great deal, and I know many others were motivated by that too. Phil Hawgood. It's been said that you stated the golf course annual fees have not been raised over the last 3 years. That is not true. The annual golf fees were raised 2 of the last 3 years and 20% over the past 5 years, which is significant. You owe the community a correction and apology for that. After spending over $1 million on legal fees to renegotiate the lake lease, the agreement made was to raise the lease each year by the CPI with a maximum of 4% and a minimum of 1%. If the annual golf fees must be increased, why not use that as a model? After listening to others last month, it's obvious the situation at the Equestrian Center needs to be addressed and corrections made. That's messed up. We didn't elect you to make our community worse, but to maintain it and hopefully improve it. So far, you're off course, and we, the community, may need to take action to correct that. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Last month, I did state that the lake lease is actually less than the golf course amenity. That is true. I stated the numbers and why it's true. I can state it again if you like. All right. The golf course subsidy this year. Don, your time is up. What I said last month and what is still true today is that the golf course subsidy this year is $967,000. That's the amount that you have to pay after all the golf course expenses and minus what the golfers pay in fees for playing golf. The lake subsidy under the Fifth Amendment was reduced to a little bit under $1.4 million. And we subtract from that the amount that people pay in boat registration fees, which is about 1,800 boats at $300 a boat. That's $540,000, if I remember correctly, which makes the amount that we subsidize the lake lease $860,000, which is less than the golf course. That's absolutely true. Next up, we have Travis Montgomery.
Travis Montgomery, 3863, Lot 10. I wasn't clear on what you said a few minutes ago about, in executive session, you talked about getting together with the presidents of the various clubs or something. I couldn't hear it real clearly. Could you restate that, please?
Yeah, it's on our agenda tomorrow to schedule at least one meeting, maybe more, and the people to be included or to discuss the golf course fees and what can be done is going to be with the golf course presidents. I believe there's 4 of them, 4 golf clubs, staff, and the board. So tomorrow night we're going to be putting together a schedule of when we can do that, and the golf course presidents will be invited to those meetings.
Okay, well, that's encouraging to know that you're willing to talk and do that. As you know, there is a committee that's also been charged with looking into making recommendations, and they're continuing to meet and do that. What I do think you heard tonight is the concern there is in the golf community, and it is a big concern, and there have been some numbers put out there that have been wrong. We have had increases in the last 3 years. The current budget shows, and I believe you stated last month, that we were over subsidy budget by about $78,000, when in fact it's under subsidy budget by $78,000.
You're correct. That was my mistake last week. I read the number incorrectly.
That's a $156,000 turnaround. So part of that, as some people have said, what you're using as a base of numbers to come to the conclusion that you came to for the $2,400. So some of those things need $156,000, a big difference in the subsidy, and would definitely put the golf course well below the lake at $156,000 difference, and that was half a year. And if you extrapolate that out for a year, it could be all the more. So those are things that I think we need to have a little better quantitative analysis of, and we'd be happy to try and work with you on them, but there's a big concern in the community, as you could hear tonight, so thank you.
Thank you, Travis. I keep repeating, that this isn't written in stone. The board's putting together meetings to discuss this. I think we have 5 months to work this out, and I think it can be worked out to where everyone's going to be happy. I think too many people are thinking that this is the way it's going to be. I don't think personally this is the way it's going to be going forward. I think we're going to have meetings, we're going to figure out ways to save some money, we're going to figure out ways to get in more members, we're going to figure out ways to lower the fees that we raised and make it to where everyone's going to be happy. That's my goal.
It's really difficult, though, to get toothpaste back in the tube. You are on record, the record of this corporation is that the dues are going to $2,400 as of. Now, if you want to make a motion to rescind that and then negotiate, that would certainly relieve a lot of people.
Obviously, that would have to happen to rescind it. I'm not prepared to do it at this point, but one of the reasons is we have the golf course consultant that we've hired, and we're waiting for him to do his investigation, his report, and make recommendations to us, and that's going to be part of what we use to try and figure out how to correct this. So it's a little premature to do that, in my opinion, but like I said, I do believe that we're going to be able to come up with something that we're all going to be happy with. Next, we have Joe Washley, track 3716, lot 433.
Thank you. I'll wait till they're ready. Thank you. First off, Paul, we don't have 5 months. There's only 4 months left to do this. January, February, March, April. The budget goes into effect May 1st, so it's 4 months. 2, you're incorrect on this subsidy with the lake and the golf course. Now, in 2017, the budget for the lake was a subsidy or a loss of $1,284,000. I round the closest thousand. The next year, it was $1,325,000. Now, we base that on what the lake lease was at that particular time. Now we've got an adjustment on it, and we are under budget through 6 months, through October 31st, on the lake of $143,000. And I would guess that should continue and maybe be $280,000 when we get through, but that would still be well over $1 million. The golf course budget was in 2017 a subsidy of $974,000. This is coming straight from the budget books, okay? And in 2018, it was $968,000. The golf course through 6 months is $79,000 under budget. If that projects out, you're looking at a little less than $160,000 off of that. So the golf course, what you didn't take into consideration, I don't think, is not community patrol, but the marine patrol, which is, as I recall, around $280,000 or something, and there's other costs involved to the lake. Now, on the golf course, as people mentioned, well, first off, the golfers pay more than any for their subsidiary or for their amenity than any other people pay, whether it's a lake, equestrian center, whatever it is. They pay more money a year than anybody else. They also give back more, like the Tuesday work group. We're talking 400 hours a month that we're doing for 9 months a year. We've got the Claps, the past presidents of the men's club. You saw a donation up there for Jack's, the cart that Jack's putting together. But they also are now, we run a beautification tournament every year. And we've got a almost $12,000 clock that's going in that's very similar. If you look at pro tournaments, these nice country clubs have these beautiful tall clocks, and that is being paid for strictly, entirely by the beautification tournament of the golf course. Now, people are saying there's an agenda, and I'm not going to say whether there is or not, but it appears there, because it's not like this corporation is going bankrupt. We are right now through 6 months, we're $703,000 under budget. $703,000 in 6 months. And there's no reason to think that we will be at least $1 million. Now, the reason I cut that from $1.4 million is because we just signed a new contract for security, as everybody knows, and we have a large increase in that. So coming and starting December 1st. So we've got 5 months of that that'll come into effect, that'll eat into some of that stuff. But I still believe that will be somewhere around $1 million. So it's not like we're bankrupt. It's just that suddenly this board made a decision to let's make the golfers pay more money. They're already paying more than anybody else, but let's make them pay more money. And I think you got to think about that. And I've talked about the economics before. When you're having a problem getting enough people on the golf course, you don't raise the dues, you cut the dues. That's what every other golf course has done. They cut theirs. We're talking about raising them. And I think that there's an agenda that needs to be eliminated. Thank you.
All right, next we have report of executive session actions. Lynn?
Hi, good evening. Happy New Year to everyone. Today's special executive session was called to order at 5:33 p.m. There was one item on the agenda, one third-party discussion item, and the meeting adjourned at 6:22 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Next we have a general manager's report. Eric?
It's been a very busy month for the hardworking employees of the POA. You probably noticed the main gate monument signs and water features are completed. We're proud of that project, and we think it kind of finalizes our main gate. We also repaired some palm tree uplighting at the main gate, which really was kind of the icing on the cake of that whole deal. If you haven't noticed those, they set off the fountains really nice. Very happy about the Happy Camp remodel, so I want to thank the board for moving forward with that project. It's very long overdue. We're excited to go to work on that. There's a lot of people in the community have been waiting for that. I want to also give a special thanks to Activities and Val Grillo for spearheading the holiday decorating team, which consisted of staff from member services, operations, and activities, creating a classy and festive look at our main entrances for Christmas. We kind of threw this project out about maybe 2 weeks before Christmas, and a lot of people here embraced it, and they got it done, and I think they really kind of made our gates look. The main gate was kind of the impetus of that project, and we decided that the front looks so nice, let's decorate everything for the holidays, and next year we'll get that stuff out about a month early, and they all did a great job. I want to thank them. Communications has been busy. They put together some information fact sheets for the board and on the internet about our Happy Camp RFP and our project. Busy with social media and updating the Lighthouse menu. I want to ask everybody to read the operations report. I do this every month, but it's very detailed, and if you want to know how our reserve money and how our staff is operating every month, that's where you'll find that information. They've been busy doing erosion control on the main causeway and the north causeway. Both of those are nearly finished. We've been doing Eastport improvements, which are pathway steps from the pickleball area up to the restrooms and the basketball courts with hand railing, tables and benches. And let's see what else. The new rental dock should be open for business any day. They're done, ready to go now. Okay. So we have another, how many docks? 22 additional rental docks, which is another great source of income for the POA, and there's been a waiting list, so we're happy that that project's finished. We just received the materials for additional pool shade structure, and we'll be installing that fairly soon. Activities and operations have both been very busy with holiday functions. The Winter Carnival, several concerts, the Parade of Lights, Golf Cart Parade, and everybody works really hard putting those together, and I want to thank staff for all that hard work. And ACC and Planning and Compliance have also been busy. This year so far, they've handled over 10,703 items, 2,584 project violations, and were signed off as compliant. ACC approved some 824 improvement permits and many, many other things. Planning Compliance and ACC are very hardworking people, and their reports also on the agenda and on the internet. I urge you to read all those. I just want to thank, as I always do, all of our hardworking staff. We have 140 very hardworking employees that do a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and I urge you to pay attention because they earn their money. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Next, we have Community Patrol, who's...
President, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for having me. I'd like to first thank all the members of the community that reached out to me, came into my office, reached out by email and phone with issues, advice, ideas. That's how my team builds as a force, and I appreciate each and every one of you helping in our mission to serve you. I really appreciate that. I wanted to take a minute to discuss the importance of safe driving. This month we had 2 vehicles impact stanchions at the main gate. Both were at a high rate of speed. One resulted in a vehicle rollover, and sadly we experienced a fatality on our roads inside of our community. Note Canyon Lake's topography and use of golf carts on the road pose special challenges to motorists. I ask that all vehicle operators observe posted speed limits and be aware of other factors that may limit safe driving. Golf carts are smaller and more nimble than full-size vehicles, and they may be required to depart their lane at any time to avoid any type of obstacle. Give them plenty of room. Err on the side of caution. If you're on a blind hill and you're wanting to cross traffic, please don't think you can make it. Wait until you're positive that you can make it, and take the proper time to do so. The POA has asked for, and I have dedicated an officer in addition to our regular forces. His name is Officer Spears, and he's been selected to act as a dedicated speed enforcement officer. He's on the road and equipped with LiDAR, and his only mission is to enforce moving violations and speed. In conjunction with our radar trailer, we feel that this is a good way to assist us in making roadways in Canyon Lake safer. I have Captain Jordan currently working to streamline the gate process so we can find a good balance between convenience and security. I don't want to compromise security, but I have seen hands up at the gate, people waiting long periods of time, and I'm working on a plan to mitigate that without risking the security of the site. Marine Patrol Captain Haney would like to remind boaters that water levels are currently low, and there is a risk of prop strikes at some sites on the water that don't generally pose that kind of a danger. If there are any questions of me at any time, feel free to reach out to my office. I'd love to hear from all of you, and I thank you.
All right, thank you. Corporate Counsel, do you have an update?
We have nothing new to report this month. Thank you, and Happy New Year to all of you.
All right, thanks. Next, board comments. Dale?
I'd like to thank you all for attending. It's nice to see the communities involved. The golf course fees is obviously going to be on the agenda over the next few months. I really hope we can engage in a real positive communication. The important thing for me is how we all work together to make the golf course better at a reasonable fee for everyone. We do subsidize the golf course heavily, and if we can find some ways to reduce that subsidy, it's really great for the community as a whole. So I can almost guarantee you we're going to have another vote on this because it's part of the normal budget cycle. Before we do vote, we do want to get all the facts together. We do want to get all of your input. We want the board's input. So Travis, appreciate wanting to have a vote tonight, but we would really like to meet with all of you and get together and create a plan to make the golf course successful, or at least as successful as we can. So have a little bit of patience with us, and we'll give you hopefully plenty of opportunity to give us feedback. So the other thing is the dredge committees started meeting. We're trying to figure a way to get some of that soil out of the lake. There's no way it's going to be done very cheaply, so I just want to give you a heads up. It's a very complicated process. It will probably be years before we actually get any of the soil out, but we are working on it, and it's one of the projects we'll be going ahead with. So we know that there's been some complaints on Facebook about the depth of the water. We're going to do what we can, and we are going to get that committee to try to move the dredging project ahead as quickly as possible and as a reasonable cost as possible.
Mike?
As far as the dredge committee, I thought we agreed to Shawshank type of situation. Everybody grab a handful of mud and take it out and dump it. I'd like to say ditto to what Dale said. I'm glad that we have this support, and we are listening, and we do want to work with you. So we're going to have this meeting tomorrow night with just the executive committee. Make a discussion or have a discussion on having workshops so we can iron things out. Nothing is set in stone, but we need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Tom?
Oh, boy. Yeah, golf has got a lot of interest in the last couple months. I've been learning a lot more about the golf than I had known previously, but I'll share some things with you that I think are where we need to go. We've talked about a lake that's leaking, and it's been leaking for a long time, but nobody's done anything about it. And it's time we do something about it. The water bills over the last year, looking at that particular meter that feeds our lake, find its way into the third level of tier, which is the highest cost for us, costing us a bunch of money. I think the estimates we had originally were $70,000. My number didn't come up that well, but I think it was because we got a lot of rain last year. In the winter months, we didn't really even use what the bill said we used. So still looks like we probably can save about $40,000 a year just by getting the lake to stop leaking. So I think I'd like to at least see staff try and come forth with a proposal to direct connect that water supply right into the sprinkler system rather than using the lake, so we can bypass the lake and start saving that money. Second thing, reclaimed water. We are using it a lot in the golf course, but we aren't able to use it right now on holes 3, 4, and 5 and a little piece of 6. Again, looking back at last year's water bills compared to this year, if we had been able to use reclaimed water, we would have saved ourselves $80,000, and it's still bleeding right now. So, that's, again, top priority. We need to try and figure out how we can get reclaimed water irrigating that part of the golf course so we can save ourselves some money down the road. Annual members, is Ray still here in the back, maybe? Yeah, he quoted 2 or 3 times a week. There's not many people here in Canyon Lake that play that many days a week, Ray. I know you're probably one of them. But, looking at the numbers from what Pat's been providing us in annual play, about 110 people make 75 rounds or more in the community based on our most recent year's play. So that's about where that 2,400 number sits. If you're playing 75 rounds, that number might make sense. If you're not playing 75 rounds, that annual number doesn't make sense. So annual golf is really just how you pay for your golf. And the higher we make the price, the fewer annual golfers we'll have. Right now we've got about 250. That number's at about 55 rounds, and we have about 250 people that play 55 rounds. So, how we structure annual golf is going to determine how many will choose to pay that way and how many will choose to pay a different way. And paying a different way makes them a little less committed to our community, and we hope that they want to play here and continue to play here. But like you said, it gives people options, and there's a lot of options around here to play golf for a lot lower rate. But the good news is golf is actually in pretty good shape. I mean, in looking at the most recent years, some stuff that I've been able to dig up from reports, and we don't have a lot of great historical data. I mean, I've asked Corey for some golf information going back years, and he can only go back so far. Our systems don't have necessarily as much as we'd like to have. But recently, our annual numbers seem to be holding steady. In fact, this year it's up a little bit. Golf revenue 2 years ago was $810K. Last year was $903, so we were up about 12%. Our expenses for golf were down about $5,000 in that same period. So again, looking good in the sense that we're keeping revenue up, but holding expenses where they need to be. The total rounds played in golf was about almost 30,000 in 15-16, up to almost 34,000 in 16-17. So again, we're getting more play on the golf course, which is good. Unique players, we had 3,400 and change 2 years ago. We had 3,900 and change last year. So we have a lot more people playing the golf course. Problem that we have is that they don't come back. For some reason, we've got over 2,400 people that play one time, and then they don't come back again. So I think that's really an area where we need to focus and try and figure out how do we get somebody that's already been here one time to come back and play again. Because if they all came back and played just one more time, it would be a huge windfall for us. So we can figure those things out. But all in all, we need to figure out how to maintain expenses and manage the expenses at the golf course. And, like I said, I found a few ways. I think electricity is another one. We're looking at the bills this last few weeks. I've found that the Country Club restaurant was being charged to the golf course, so that's being fixed. So that's going to save about $10,000, $12,000 a year out of the golf course budget. There's things that maybe people didn't even think about. The Canyon Lake utility tax that's been charged on all our utility bills. Guess where a lot of that lays is right with the golf course. There's about $15,000 worth of utility tax being charged to the golf course. So, we have a fire department here for everybody in the community, but the golf course is paying for most of it. So there's things that are out there, things that we can look at and try and figure out how to position so that it makes sense for everybody. And I appreciate you all being here. I hope you'll come to provide input at the workshops that we have so that we can, come to the best solution for everybody. Thank you.
Well stated, Tom. We're not the enemy, even though we sure seem like we look like it. What we're trying to do is make it fair for everyone. And when you get all the numbers, we finally are getting all the numbers. We got them a little at a time regarding golf. Pat started with, 1 page, then 3 pages, then ultimately 20 pages, and it took a couple of months to get there. And when we finally looked at the overall from how many people play one round, I think the maximum number is 257 somebody plays. And we're looking at the way we can make it more affordable for everyone, but maybe more expensive for some. There's nothing cut in stone here other than we wanted the attention of the golf community and the attention of all of the Canyon Lake property owners. We have a huge amenity we want to keep. We've never said we want to close it. There is no agenda to do such a thing. We want to make sure that we're getting the best value from each member at the best rate for that member. One of your annual members played 7 times last year. He paid $1,800. That seems pretty excessive to me. But I don't want to lose him by going to 24 either. I'm thinking about reducing his rate to something more affordable. He could do 20 rounds at $640 and be a far better off player for his pocketbook, but he wants to support golf in a subsidy. Himself, he's putting forth $1,800 and he's losing $1,200 by doing so. So we have to look at the shape, the configuration of what annual membership is. Maybe there should be tiers of annual membership based on play and trying to keep the number below any other competing within 15-mile golf course. And let's keep in mind that we do have the best golf course, the most well-kept golf course, and some of the greatest people playing on them. So we're not your enemy, but we are trying to do the job for all of us. And we welcome your comments. We wish they'd be a little bit more positive, but we'll endure. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil and Tom. Some of the comments that were just made regarding the golf lake, I know that I've been talking with Eric, and they're working on a plan to do a bypass of the lake so that the greens can be watered directly without going through the golf lake. Unfortunately, that still leaves the problem of the lake, because even if we bypass it for watering purposes, the lake is still going to lose water and have to be refilled if we're going to actually have a lake. So one of the things we're going to have to deal with is what we do with that golf lake. Do we fix it? Do we fill it in and not have a lake? What's the way forward with a lake? That's something we're also still going to have to deal with. The electricity, that's the first time I've heard that, the country club's charging the golf course for their electricity use. My guess would be from past experiences, that's a metering issue. There's only 1 meter there. And so it's probably all being charged to the same thing. Eric, is there a way of separating meters or something like that so that the country club's meter is not being charged to the golf course, or is that something that Edison would have to do to separate those costs? Yeah.
Golf doesn't use electricity. It uses water.
Not much. They charge the carts. I'm sure it's not a lot of electricity that they're using. Yeah. So this has come up in the past where why is this amenity being charged all this money, and it's for electricity, it's usually a metering issue. There's only 1 meter, so there's only one place to pull the money from. Like I said, I think we're going to be able to come to something that's going to be acceptable for everyone. Phil mentioned the tiered pricing package. That's something I had spoke with a couple of the other board members and maybe even Eric with as a possible solution is, to me, I think Dale and I spoke to Eric about it at the president's meeting last time. To me, the golf course annual fee is a one-size-fits-all. And based on the numbers that we've seen of how many people are playing how many rounds, in annual golf, it doesn't really fit for most people. It's a great price for the guys that are paying 200 or 250 rounds a year, and it's a horrible price for the guys that are playing 30 or 40 or 50 rounds a year. So I think a tiered pricing structure is one way to go that might be something that works for everyone. You know, we could say, I don't have numbers in my head that are the actual numbers, but I'm thinking that, you know, you have something for like 40 rounds or 50 rounds or less, and that's a number, say 1,500. I don't know what the number will be. And then you have a mid-tier where you say, okay, for people that play 50 to 100 rounds, we have this price, and then people that are playing over 100 rounds, we have this price. That's something that is being discussed that I think might make it fair to everyone. It make golf cheaper for people that are playing less rounds than what they've been paying, and it may make golf a little bit more expensive for the people that are playing a ton of rounds every year. So, like I said, we're scheduling these meetings to work with the golf course presidents, staff, board, see what we can do to work out this issue. There is no agenda as far as I'm concerned. I got an email from Tom a few days ago where he insinuated the same thing. Possibly there was some agenda on my part. I said, listen, I'm a golfer. I have a bad back. I don't play golf as much as I used to because of my bad back. But I'm a golfer. My father's been a golfer for 60 years. He was a member of the Canyon Lake Country Club for 10 years till he got old and couldn't play anymore due to health issues. My son's a golfer. I have 3 sets of golf clubs, including a set of pings, which is anyone that's a golfer knows they're a fairly expensive set of clubs. At least they were back in the day. I've had mine for quite a while. I don't have an agenda against golf. My agenda is to try and do the right thing, to try and make it fair for everyone, both golfers and non-golfing members. And that just means, you know, we got to work out a way of maintaining the subsidy or lowering the subsidy so that it's not constantly going up, and working out a price schedule that's fair to golfers and people that don't play golf. You know, we also, you know, when you're on the board, you have to listen to both sides. I know there's a lot of golfers here tonight. They're not happy with the price increase, and I understand that. But when you're on the board, you also have a lot of members calling you going, why are we paying so much for golf? So when you're up here in this position, you have to consider both sides and try and do what's fairest for everyone. And I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to work it out. We're going to come out with a solution that's better than what we did, and we're going to come out with something that's going to be fair to everyone. And like I said, we do have the golf consultant coming in, and he's going to give us recommendations on a lot of things, including overall golf operations and what adjustments we might be able to make to save money, and things that we're doing that are right, things we're doing that are wrong. We're looking, you know, flat out for just your opinion. Tell us, like you said, and somebody said, we're not golf experts. I'm certainly not a golf expert, so we've hired the golf expert, and we're going to let him tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and we'll probably be able to make changes based on his recommendations that'll help save us some money. That's all I have. We don't have any architectural appeals tonight, so our next board meeting is going to be January 16th for executive session, and I'll take a motion to adjourn. Yeah, we have exec tomorrow, but as far as, you know.
I move that we close the meeting at 8:37 p.m.
I second it.
Aye.